Hello, everybody. Charles from GMAT Ninja here. Welcome to episode 8 of our 2026 live critical reasoning series. Today, we're going to cover the nastiest critical reasoning questions I can find. These are all official questions. Now, I got a great comment from somebody in the chat here before we even started. Why do we do this? We know they're nasty, so wouldn't that mean we won't encounter them much? Yeah. That is correct. I think for most of you, these super hard questions are not really the point. These are not something that are going to ruin your day on the GMAT exam. But here's what I want you to get out of it. Thing number one is, I think sometimes going through these videos where we show you the hardest questions of a certain genre, I think help you to understand kind of the limits of the test. So part of what's interesting about the questions we'll go through today, again, these are the hardest statistically. These are the questions that are the most frequently missed. All of these typically are missed by more than half of students who encounter them. These are really tough. The language isn't that bad, right? It's not the language typically that's going to get you. So non-native speakers, language probably isn't going to be the problem on these. It's going to be something else if there is a problem for you. So that's one thing we want to get out of this. Second, I kind of chose these questions, yes, partly based on the fact that these are the craziest, hardest questions out there, but also based on the fact that all of these pitfalls we've been talking about, first 7 episodes of this series, or if you go to the GMAT Ninja channel, we have all these videos on critical reasoning, full free GMAT course. What are the things we go through there? It's based on pitfalls. What are the things that you do wrong to cause you to miss critical reasoning questions? And when we say that kind of thing, we're often talking about easier questions, right? Here's a reason you might miss something that is easy for you. Well, these are hard for everybody pretty much, but those same reasons are underneath them. So I've chosen these questions pretty carefully to say, hey, here's a certain reason why people miss it. So hopefully, even if you get your butt kicked pretty hard by these, and most of you should get your butt kicked pretty hard by these, hopefully you'll still get something out of it that will help you on those not so obscenely difficult questions. All right. With that, let's just hop in. I'm going to try to get through 4 questions today. Maybe we'll get to 5. I doubt it. That is not what I wanted at all. How about this? Whoa, something's wrong. Okay, there we go. All right, have at it, guys. Live group, as always, let me know what you're thinking as soon as you get there. All right, live group, if you're struggling on a question, let us know that too. Wave the white flag. More information I have, better I can make this video for everybody. All right, let's hop on in. Okay, so part of why I picked on this question is it has no structure, right? So part of what makes people uncomfortable, one of the things we beat into you early in this series on the GMAT Ninja channel as well, we're beating into you, think structurally, and people try to do a couple things with that. They shoehorn everything into a question type bucket. We'll talk more about that as the video goes on today. And they also kind of go, well, I'm going to find a conclusion no matter what. Well, guess what, guys? There is no conclusion here, right? It's just a loose collection of facts. The question is asking us, the information given most strongly supports which of the following general claims. So we're looking for which one of those 5 answer choices is the most true based on what we have here. So what do we have here? Well, hey, when there's a sharp decline in population, here's what happens. Tax revenue goes down. Great. The area policed and the length of water lines do not decrease. So presumably you still have to spend money on those. But an option is not to raise tax rates, because if you do that, so raising tax rates is not feasible because it would cause even more residents to leave. Quick thing here, this has been a good question. New Master, thank you for this. Sometimes I'm not explicit about the difficulty level because we can't always give you that very precisely. So difficulty levels are determined empirically by GMAT on the actual exam. We don't have access to that data. Even for official questions, when they label them easy, medium, hard, that isn't always based on the actual data. So I can give you an approximation. I usually do that in these videos. For this particular video, assume everything's super, super hard. These are 700 plus. Just assume that for everything that's in this video today. A lot of the rest of the time, I have to be hand wavy about it because we don't have the exact values. I can tell you what I think, but I usually kind of say, oh, it's moderately hard. It's pretty hard. These are just freaking hard today. So good luck to you. All right. And again, language isn't hard here, but I see people mess up because they either two things happen on the passage. They hallucinate structure. They look for a conclusion when there isn't one, number one. Number two, sometimes they go, well, there isn't structure, so I'm just going to kind of skim it and move on. Still be deliberate with the passage. Be systematic. Make sure you're making any connections that are there. Don't skip that step. That's part of where you can miss a question. Might be a really hard question, but it's one you're capable of getting right. I still want you to get it. So make sure your process is still nice and clean. All right. Answer choices. In a city with if in a city with sharply declining population, police protection and waterline maintenance do not deteriorate, something else will deteriorate or be eliminated. I don't know about you guys. I'm not comfortable with this one. I don't like it because it's like, well, it seems to be suggesting that there's no other solution, right? So population declines, tax revenue goes down. We can't raise taxes. That's given to us in the passage. But you still have to police the same area, take care of the same water lines. Isn't there some other option? Isn't there something else that wouldn't deteriorate or be eliminated? I don't think I like the word deteriorate here. This feels a little strong. This feels like too strong of a general claim to me. Notice the language I just used. It feels like too strong of a general claim. Do I think it's wrong? No. It feels a little strong to me. So what am I going to do? I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to keep it in. Because it's like, I guess this is true. I guess I don't see any other option. But it seems weird to me that everything else will deteriorate or something else will deteriorate. Seems a little odd to me. Seems too strong to be the right answer. But I'm going to keep it. Okay. So I'm going to pick on you here because thank you for being here every single week. Really, really appreciate it. Careful. Why categorize? What does that do for you? The question is asking what the question is asking, right? So it's asking the information given most strongly supports which of the following general claims. Throwing it into a bucket doesn't help. Read the question you're given. And part of why I'm saying that is foreshadowing for at least one more question we're going to do today. You lump it into a bucket and you try to apply the same thing to these hard questions that you do to something that is similar but not the same. You can get bitten in the butt, not literally. So be a little careful with that. It's an inference question. Kinda, yeah. I mean, it's which of the following is true, right? Which of these 5 answer choices is the most true? Similar approach you would take for inferences. But you don't gain anything by lumping it into that bucket. Take the question as it's given, especially as you get to the hard ones, and answer what you're given, because we tweak the phrase a little bit, and it's going to become something different than you expect if you're throwing it into a bucket. And again, we'll see that in a minute. Okay. And yes, I might agree with you there. We'll come to that. Okay, B. If the city's tax rates are held stable over a period of time, neither the population nor the levels of city services will tend to decline. We have no idea that that's the case, right? We know that if tax rates are raised in a city, in this circumstance, right? So sharp decline of population already in a city. If we raise those tax rates further, even more people will leave. Do we know what happens when tax rates are stable? We have no idea, right? We don't know what caused this sharp decline in population. Might have had something to do with taxes, might not have. I think B, we can just eliminate. There is no reason to think that this would be the case. B is out. C, if a city's population declines sharply, Police protection and waterline maintenance are the services that deteriorate most immediately and most markedly. Again, can't support that either, right? Because sure, this is something that is a problem. There's less revenue. You still have to police the same area, maintain the same water lines. But does that mean that they deteriorate the most markedly? I mean, that sounds like a choice the city could make, right? Is let something else deteriorate instead. Also, notice in the language in the passage, city services such as, so revenue pays for city services such as police protection, maintenance of water lines. Obviously, there are other city services. Those could decline instead, or decline more markedly most immediately instead. So really no reason to think that C would be the case. D, a city that suffers revenue losses because of a sharp decline in population can make up some of the lost tax revenue by raising tax rates, provided the city's tax rates are low in relation to those of other cities. This is definitely contradicted by the passage, right? So the question's asking us, information given most strongly supports which of the following? We're taking this information as a fact. What does it support? Does it support D? Not at all, right? Because if you raise tax rates, even more people leave. That erodes your tax base further. Doesn't really matter, according to the passage. There's no qualifiers there, right? It's not feasible to raise tax rates further because more people will leave. Obviously, it's going to erode your tax base further. So D is definitely not it. E, a city that is losing residents because tax rates are perceived as too high can reverse it by bringing its tax rates down to a more moderate level. Again, we have no idea, right? We don't know. The only thing we know about tax rates is in this circumstance, city with declining population, if you try to raise rates further, even more people will leave. Do we know what's happening? Do we know why the population is declining? Do we know that it's because of high tax rates? Nope, we don't know that. Do we know what would happen if tax rates went down? We don't. We know that if they went up, even more people would leave under the circumstance where the population's already declined. We don't know what would happen if you lower tax rates. So absolutely not supported. All right. Welcome to a nice hard question, guys. Do I like A? No, I don't love it, right? I think it's a little bit, I don't know. I think the language is a little bit too strong. So some other service previously provided by the city will deteriorate or be eliminated. It just seems like there might be some other possibility out there. But is this supported broadly? Sure, right? So population's going down. You can't raise tax rates. You've got this problem of certainly the area you need to take care of with water and police stays the same. Presumably the costs are going to stay the same, all else being equal, even though your revenue's going down. So something's got to give, something's got to go downhill. A is broadly the right direction. I don't love the language, the exact language of it, but notice on some of these, it's good to be conservative. I'm going to hang on to it. Do I think it is a bulletproof answer choice? No, but that's what happens quite a bit. You've seen it in other videos in this series, that sometimes we're picking an answer that is not perfect. They're not asking the information given proves that which of the following is true. That's not the question. Most strongly supports. These are all terrible. This one's mediocre. That's our answer. All right. Okay, yeah, some really good comments here, you guys. This is some helpful stuff. None of the options give a clear picture of the scenario as a whole. Yeah, I think that's right. So none of those options are supported at all, right? I mean, there is zero support for B, C, D, and E. Now, to Swetha's point, we don't know about any other services too, right? You can't make assumptions about it. This is a really useful comment because this feels a little bit like word matching or eye matching. Sometimes we'll call it. I've talked about it in some other videos where you're kind of going, wait, but we don't know about that. In a way, that's my discomfort with it too. But when you think about what's given in the passage, right? Revenue's down. We're still gonna, it doesn't say we have to spend the same amount on the area to be policed and the waterline maintenance, the length of the water lines. That's kind of the implication, right? It's hard to drop, if we have to do all this stuff in the same amount of area, same length of water lines, you can't drop those costs that much. I think that's a reasonable inference to make there. You can't raise taxes. So what do? There's just less money to go around. Something is gonna have to give. We don't have to know anything explicit about those other services to say, well, yeah, it's reasonable to say that something will deteriorate or be eliminated. Again, I'd feel better if it said funding will deteriorate for those other services. We don't have to know anything about those services to know that, well, hey, if there's less money to go around, city's going to spend less money on those. So is A reasonable? Yeah. Is it bulletproof? No. Is it fair to be uncomfortable? Yeah. But again, part of why I harp on cross-elimination, when the questions get really hard, a lot of students get squirrely about it. And they don't do the cross-elimination as sharply. It's like, but I don't like A. Yeah, I don't love it either, but it's clearly the best of the 5 because the other 4 are so terrible. All right. Told you, not messing around. These are tough. One more question. Nice, innocent, strengthened question, but it's got some, I think, very productive little Trojan horses in there. Go ahead and take a look. And again, live group, as soon as you struggle, please punch something into the chat and just say, hey, I'm getting my butt kicked. It's helpful to see. All right, pause if you need to. Live group, sorry, you can't pause me, but keep firing your thoughts in there. If you're struggling to eliminate a couple things, just getting your butt kicked, whatever. Please let me know. More feedback, the better. Again, I'm very much accustomed to, you've seen me yap into a camera plenty of times by now, but my bread and butter is I like being around people. I like hearing feedback, one-on-one tutoring in a classroom, my favorite thing. So talk at me, please, guys. All right. This one looks sweet and innocent, right? It's just a strengthened question. No big deal. All right. And we have a nice clean conclusion like all strengthened questions do. It's so nice. Last nice one of the day. Any future recessions in Vargonia will probably not reduce the availability of teaching jobs at government-funded schools. As always, guys, just make sure you're being really precise with the language of their words, not yours. Little details here. I see people dropping, oh, well, probably. Does that really make a difference here? I don't know. But you drop that word, it matters. Availability of teaching jobs at government-funded schools. Okay, fine. What's the rationale for it? Well, there's a new legal requirement. By the way, talking about future recessions here. Come back to that in a minute. New legal requirement that education in government schools is free for all, regardless of the economy. And the current student-teacher ratios must not be exceeded. So basically, they're saying, hey, Economy doesn't matter. We're always going to fund these schools. It's always going to be free for everybody. And the current student-teacher ratios must not be exceeded. So moving forward, we must either have the same or the same or lower student-teacher ratios, meaning for the same number of students, we either need to keep the same number of teachers or actually increase the number of teachers. So if that's the case, where we're either maintaining, so must not exceed the current student-teacher ratios, everybody can attend, then sure, recessions aren't going to affect the number of jobs because it is entirely based on the number of students, and that's it, essentially. Okay. Nika, yes, thank you for this. This is exactly what most people do, and I don't know if, yeah, that's what happens to most people. And if I were being a little cheekier, I would do it right now. I might do, we'll see. A, so looking for strength here, straightforward. The current student-teacher ratio at Vargonia's government-funded schools is higher than it was during the most recent period of economic recession. Doesn't matter, right? All we care about is the difference between now and the next recession, any future recessions in general. Future recessions will not reduce the availability of teaching jobs relative to today. So what was the student-teacher ratio in a previous recession? Doesn't matter at all, right? We don't care about what happened in previous recessions. We have this new legislation requiring that we don't exceed the current student-teacher ratios, and we're looking ahead to the future recessions. A has nothing to do with this. All right, B. During recent periods when the Vargonian economy has been strong, almost 75. I'm a mess today. 25% of Vargonian children have attended privately funded schools. We're not talking about private schools, so we can eliminate B as well. C, nearly 20% more teachers are currently employed in Vargonia's government-funded schools than had been in the period before last recession. C is just like A, fundamentally. We really don't care about employment levels before the last recession. The only thing at issue in this question, future recessions, are they gonna, they will not reduce the availability of teaching jobs. That's it. Comparing future recessions to today, that's it. What happened in the last economic recession or before it, irrelevant. D, teachers in Vargonia's government-funded schools are well paid relative to teachers in privately funded schools. This might be tempting to some of you. I don't know if we saw a lot of people pick this. A couple of you, I think, were thinking about this one. So this might make the teaching job in the government-funded schools more appealing, but notice what the conclusion is. It's about availability of those jobs, not how many people will choose to take them or apply to them or anything like that. So for that reason, D is definitely out. E, during the last economic recession in Vargonia, the government permanently closed a number of the schools that it had funded. Again, last recession, doesn't matter. What's at issue? What's going to happen in future recessions? So E is out, and we are screwed. So if you did this, no shame in that, because I think it's very, very easy to do here. So watching Interstellar the first time, interesting. Okay, so if you did this, exactly what I just did, and again, very, very common. Again, most people miss this question and end up lunging at something else other than the right answer. If you did that, it is because it is most likely either you misread something fundamentally, or much more likely, what happened here is that you dismissed something kind of hastily, sort of like we talked about in the last question, where you looked at something and said, wait, we're not talking about that. But that's not how you want to think, especially not in general for GMAT critical reasoning, and certainly not for the harder questions, because what you want to think is, what does this do to the conclusion? Does it strengthen it? Does it weaken it? Does it affect it in some way? And it's too easy to say, this thing is irrelevant, I'm going to throw it away. I just did that very deliberately to the right answer. And I will now correct that mistake and start over. Okay, in the interest of time here, there were three here that I think we could get rid of. I think for a very, very good reason, thinking in terms of what does this do to the conclusion? Not, does it match? Do I like the words? Does it seem familiar? Did they talk about that? None of that, just what does it do? So we had several of these that talked about a prior recession. And again, when you think about what's going on here, I'm not going to rehash each of those in any detail, but any future recessions will not reduce availability of government jobs, presumably relative to right now. So we don't care about A, right? Unambiguously, it doesn't matter if the student-teacher ratio is higher now than it was in the last recession, has nothing to do with anything. We're looking forward. I can say something very, very similar about C and about E. So I'm going to stand by those eliminations. I think those are pretty bulletproof. Have a very clean reason to say, no, these don't matter. And I'm not just kind of labeling it as irrelevant, that's it, because sometimes that's where scores go to die. That's irrelevant. I don't recognize that. I have a really good reason, right? What happened in the last recession has absolutely no bearing on this argument at all. So A, C, E, if I'm looking at this correctly, yes. We're down to B and D. D, teachers in Vargonia's government-funded schools are well paid relative to teachers in most privately funded schools. Many of which rely heavily on part-time teachers. That has nothing to do with the availability of jobs. Has absolutely nothing to do with it, right? This is about the appeal of these jobs. Now, I suppose if the passage said something about funding limitations, whatever, then maybe teachers are expensive and maybe you can get there. But here, nothing about funding, right? Legal requirement. Current student-teacher ratios must not be exceeded. Anybody who wants to come to school in these schools can. It's free for everybody, regardless of the economy. So it's not D. And boy, I hope we like B on a second look. This is the one that I think, and this is, again, exactly what makes this a tough question. It's just a strengthen. Language isn't hard, guys, right? What makes this hard? B feels useless. Feels useless. I don't care about what's happening in privately funded schools, right? That feels right. What I just said feels right. It is not right, because that's not how you want to think for the GMAT. You want to think, okay, well, what does this do? So during recent periods when the economy has been strong, so presumably like right now, we're not in recession, as far as I can tell based on the passage, almost 25% of Oregonian children, that's a lot, have attended privately funded schools, and those are expensive. Many of those charge substantial fees. Okay, what does this have to do with any of this? Well, what happens in a recession? Jobs are harder to get in times of economic recession because businesses cut back operations. Okay, so fewer people are employed. So what would happen in these privately funded schools in a recession? People can't afford the fees. Am I sure that that would happen? No, but seems reasonable that it could. And if you have this, regardless, and even if you're not sure that that would happen, you have this whole pool of students over there. 25% of kids are in privately funded schools. You've got this whole reserve of students who could come over to these nice free schools that are always free regardless of the economy. You've got all these students who could come on over. And if they come over, what happens? Can't exceed the current student-teacher ratios. So if more students come, you've got to hire more teachers. Does B give us a reason to strengthen the argument that recessions probably will not reduce availability? Yeah. Is it amazing? No. Is this bulletproof? No. Is it perfect? No. Does it prove the argument? Again, no. That's not what the question's asking. Most strengthens. The other four, just like the last question we did, the other four are terrible. B feels irrelevant. Don't let the feel get in the way of your GMAT. Think about what it does. And look, I am also not picking it on my first pass through. So I eliminated it to be cute or something. But I would go, well, I see how this could strengthen it. I'm not convinced that it does. I would just keep it and look for something better. There could be an answer choice F that is stronger, but of these, does B strengthen it? Sure, there's a whole reserve pool of students. They're paying a bunch of money to go to the school. Their parents are. Could they plausibly come over to the government-funded schools once jobs go down? You bet. Are we sure that they will? No, but it doesn't matter, especially the way the conclusion's phrased. Will probably not reduce availability. If it said increase availability, B's not so good. Will probably not reduce availability. If we got a bunch of students over there that might come over, yeah, it strengthens the idea that availability will not be reduced just because there's a recession. All right, I hope you guys are having fun. This was your warm-up. The questions are actually, I think, going to get a little harder on the next couple. Not messing around here. Okay. Couple things. For those of you watching live, so we're filming this June 17th, 2026. Super scoring was just announced as a thing for the GMAT. We will talk about that in a live stream immediately after this one. So at 9:30 a.m. US Pacific time. So join us for that too if you're watching this live now, or go find it on the YouTube afterwards if you're curious about super scoring, how it works, what we know about it, what to do about it. All of these pitfalls I've been talking about, by the way, in this video, that is kind of the heart of how we teach both our one-on-one students. Certainly in our free course, a lot of it is about figuring out not, hey, I'm going to memorize this way of doing a question type. That's not what's going to get you far in the GMAT. What is going to get you far is introspection, understanding who you are, where you make mistakes. If you made that mistake on B and you were too hasty to eliminate it because you said, well, I didn't mention, if you made exactly the mistake I made on the first pass through, hey, I didn't see the words there. We have a whole video just on that, on word matching, eye matching, all sorts of other things that we mentioned in these videos. We kind of address those directly in the free course. Lots of other stuff there. So if you want more, check that out. All right. Have another question, guys. I will shut my mouth briefly. All right. I get the feeling that a lot of the live group has seen this before. So apologies for that, guys. Obviously, an official question some of you have seen. So if you're watching live and you saw a bunch of people kind of post answers right away and you are not getting the same answer, you're struggling, please don't feel bad. I think some people are kind of jumping the gun on this one, which is totally cool. And again, statistically, people get crushed by this. I mean, it is more than half people miss it. Could argue that it's statistically the hardest question in the official guide. Could argue that. Again, your mileage may vary. If this one made you feel good, if it made sense to you, awesome. Makes me happy. Again, the thing to notice about all these, language isn't that bad. This is as hard as they come, and the language isn't crazy. There's another hitch in there that we'll get into in just a second. So glad it was a so I thought that might just also be you improving some, which makes me happy. All right. What I think is a little bit annoying about this question, and I think is challenging when you first start running into things like this, and is sometimes, yeah, great comment here, and Drew, I might be misinterpreting what you're saying here. What I think is hard about this question is that you kind of have this, so you have this conclusion, you kind of this double negative thing going on almost. So what's the conclusion? Editorial's rationale cannot justify the restriction they advocate. Okay, and so what's the restriction? The limit the amount of homework assigned to kids under the age of 12. Why? What's that rationale? Well, free time is important for child development. And if you assign too much homework, so homework in large quantities can severely restrict the free time. Okay, all that just to understand the conclusion. But then what are we being asked to do? We're most seriously calling into question the theorist's conclusion. So we're trying to kind of weaken this, right? Which means we're kind of strengthening all of this, sort of. Basically. So we're strengthening the idea that this restriction is a good idea. So, Drew, I don't know if this is what you're thinking personally, but I think for most people who struggle on this question, that's kind of the logic that is the struggle. And it's very, very easy to get flipped around on this. And the most commonly chosen wrong answer comes from people getting flipped around and strengthening when they should weaken, or weakening when they should strengthen, or whatever. So my advice when you see something like this that flips you around, or you feel like it might be, guys, take your time. If you need to take a moment to sort of write some of this out, to go, wait a minute. So the conclusion is the editorial's rationale can't justify the restriction they advocate, and we're trying to call into question that conclusion. So we're weakening the idea that the rationale can't justify the conclusion. So wait, okay. So I'm strengthening what these editorial writers are saying. Limiting the amount of homework assigned to kids younger than 12 is a good thing. And we're also kind of strengthening the rationale, not just the restriction, right? We're strengthening the idea that this rationale, free time is important, too much homework restricts development, therefore, let's limit homework. That's what we're strengthening. Very, very easy to get messed up there. And again, it makes me happy. If you guys are finding this easy, cool. That's wonderful. I'll try to go through it a little bit faster then. And by the way, what is the educational theorist's rationale for saying all this? They're saying, hey, the average homework time is little more than 30 minutes per night. There's at least plenty of free time. Like, hey, it's not that much homework. So what's all this about? We don't need the restriction. Okay. So we're looking for something that's going to strengthen the idea that, no, the restriction is still good for this rationale, because of this rationale, that free time is important for child development. By the way, I very strongly agree with the editorial writers for what it's worth. My kid's school does not assign homework at all. Makes me happy. I think it's good. Kids should go out and do goofy stuff until they're older. All right. Some teachers give homework assignments of a kind that research suggests is most effective educationally when done in class. All right. Could you argue that this, again, you could think of it as weakening this conclusion. I think it's easier to think of it as strengthening or reinforcing the editorial writer's restriction. So strengthening the idea that limiting homework is good because too much homework limits development. So does they do that for us? Does that strengthen it? So some teachers give homework assignments that's most effective education I've done in class. That might be a reason to restrict homework, right? Might be a reason to change the homework. So maybe kind of tempting, but here's the problem with A. So I wouldn't mind at all if you say, hey, I'm going to be conservative, I'm going to keep it in, because it does give you a reason why maybe this restriction is good. This homework isn't that effective, just do the stuff in class instead. But notice what this conclusion is. The rationale can't justify the restriction. So this doesn't connect to that rationale at all, right? So the rationale, so in the editorial writer's mind, the rationale, too much homework restricts development, restricts free time, that justifies the restriction of limiting homework. A does not do that for us. A doesn't support any of that, because it's giving us another reason why we might want less homework, certainly why we might want different homework, but there's no connection to the rationale, which is why I would say we can get rid of that. And again, if I were actually taking the test right now, I might hang on to it, but I think we're going to try to do this in one pass through. B, for children younger than 12, regularly doing homework has no proven value, but here's the reason why you should do it: self-discipline, time management. Okay, well, that's a reason why we should have the homework, reason we shouldn't have the restriction. So this does not do what we want it to do. It actually does the opposite. So B is out. C, some homework assignments are related to free time activities that children engage in, such as reading or hobbies. That has nothing to do with whether the quantity of homework is going to restrict development. So yeah, some of them are related. That's fine. I guess you could argue that's a reason to assign the homework because it's related to things they like doing, I guess. But it has nothing to do with the quantity, right? So the argument the editorial writers are making, free time activities are important for child development. Therefore, let's restrict the homework. C doesn't really get into that rationale at all. We can get rid of C. D, substantial proportion of children under 12, particularly those in the first few years of school, have less than 10 minutes of homework assigned per night. Those of you with math brains, which is most of you, hopefully, because you're going to do some math on this GMAT thing. Wait a minute, if there's a substantial proportion of kids who get less than 10 minutes a night, and the average is a little more than 30 minutes per night, there must be kids getting a bunch more. Okay. So that kind of hurts this educational theorist thinking, right? Because if the argument is, well, there's only a little more than 30 minutes per night, no big deal. What's D saying? D is saying that some kids are getting a bunch more than 30 minutes. They must be, by definition. If a lot of kids, substantial proportion, are getting less than 10, some kids are getting more than 30. That's a problem. That's going to weaken the educational theorist conclusion, reinforce the idea that maybe these editorial writers are right. Maybe we should limit this because it's impeding on free time and the development opportunities that come with it. So hang on to D. E, some free time activities. Teach kids stuff they later find useful. Great. That's kind of fine. But that, again, doesn't connect to the rationale. That might be a reason to restrict. That might be a reason why free time is good. Is that a reason why this rationale, too much homework restricts development? Is that a reason why this rationale would support the restriction? Not at all. So D is our winner. All right. I think we have time for one more, you guys. This one's pretty fun, I think. Unpleasant. Fun in an unpleasant way. I sound like a dentist. Like, let me get out my drill and drill it into you guys. I'm going to end this one a little bit short today. Usually I go for a full hour. I'm going to end about 5 minutes short so we can hop over to live stream and talk about super scoring. So last question, go ahead and take a moment. This one is kind of a classic. And again, live group, as soon as you have an answer or a struggle or a doubt or a wisecrack, please let me know. All right, as always, pause if you need to. Um, yeah, you guys, I'm on camera. Nobody's ever seen, for all you know, I don't have pants. I don't have legs. I might be 8 feet tall, 4 feet tall. So no comment, but that's funny. I appreciate that. Um, the other question real quick, and we'll fire through this lovely Hollywood diner question. We are doing some sort of session next week. So GMAT Ninja Wednesdays is the thing. The plan is for me to be here doing something every single week. Question is whether it's going to be quant data insights or possibly something admissions related or a podcast premiere where we're working on all of those things. If you have a preference, if there's something you really want to see us do on GMAT Ninja Wednesdays, please let us know in the comments. You can tag me here on YouTube, any of the socials, GMAT Club, all the places at GMAT Ninja. And we will do our best to provide what you guys are interested in. All right, Hollywood, the diner, creepy people staring at celebrities. Kind of weird to me. Like you're sitting on high tables, just like munching away on your burger and just like staring at celebrities. Whatever people are into. Okay. Nice structure here. Got a nice clean passage. There's a conclusion. So if the Hollywood replaced some of its seating with high tables, its profits would increase. Why is that? Well, many customers prefer tall tables with stools. Gives them a better view of those celebrities. Creeps. And also, as a bonus, diners on those stools typically don't stay as long. So they're gonna come in. More of them will come in because they like these tables, presumably. So I can stare at celebrities, and they're going to stare at the celebrities and then leave. Great. And then you can give that table to the next customer that wants to stare at celebrities. Okay, so profits will increase. Now, here's where the mistakes come in, and here's where the pain comes in. I think some of the questions we did earlier felt easy, but a lot of people miss them because they're maybe looking at an answer choice and going, that's irrelevant. It feels easy, but it isn't. This one, I think for a lot of people, it can feel hard because that question stem itself is funky. So earlier I was picking on a couple of my favorites here about labeling question types. Hey, is this an inference question? And I'm like, careful with that. Vulnerable to criticism. If we want to slap that label on it, we can do that and say, we did a whole video that included those. So what do we do with that? Well, hey, we take this structure. It's kind of like a weaken, but not close, but not exactly. You're kind of saying this, yeah, this is true, but. So it's not necessarily completely weakening it. It might not come out of left field. It's more of a but that's added to the argument. So that's the answer choice we're looking for. Here's the thing. The question stem is saying more than that. You've got to be really, really careful with these guys as the questions get harder. This is a thing they can throw in. So yeah, not everything fits perfectly into a bucket. Great example. So if this just said the argument is vulnerable to criticism, that blank, that's one thing. It's not what it says. The argument is vulnerable to criticism on the grounds that the argument, gives reason to believe that it is likely that something. So we're not only looking for something that weakens or inserts a but or as a vulnerability or a criticism of the argument. We're doing that. But it also has to be something that the argument itself gives us reason to believe is the case. Subtle distinction, but it's everything here because I'll take a pass through this and just, hey, which one's weakened? Which one would be a vulnerability? Let's go through and do that first. We're going to have a few left, not just one. All right. A, some celebrities come to the Hollywood to be seen, and so might choose to sit at the tall tables if it were available. It's not clear to me how this really, even if you're thinking of this as a weakened question, again, which I would caution against, but first pass through, let's pretend it's just a weakened question. Hard for me to see how this really weakens it, right? Because it's like, well, that's fine. I mean, that doesn't necessarily hurt anything. I mean, maybe fewer available for customers, but the celebrities are showing up. If more celebrities show up, I think that's good for the customers. So not clear to me how this is going to weaken anything or be a vulnerability. Didn't get rid of A. B, the price of meals ordered by celebrities dining at the Hollywood compensates for the longer time they spend lingering over their meals. That has nothing to do with it. Again, what's the rationale for increasing profits? It's we'll draw in more customers on these high stools, and they're not going to stay as long. So what the celebrities are ordering, the higher priced meals because they're eating more slowly, doesn't really have a whole lot to do with profits here. And even if it did, this would arguably strengthen, not weaken or not be vulnerability. Okay. A customer of the Hollywood who would choose to sit at a tall table would be an exception to the generalization about lingering. Okay. That would definitely be a vulnerability, right? Because if the idea is we're going to make more money, customers will come in, they'll like these tables, and then they're going to get the heck out. So we give it to the next customer. But C is saying, but that might not happen. They might linger. So that might weaken this idea that we generate more profits. So C looks good. We'll hang on to that. D, a restaurant's customers who spend less time at their meals typically order less expensive meals than those who remain at their meals longer. This is a vulnerability too, right? This weakens it for sure. Because if the people who are coming and going quickly on these tall tables are ordering cheaper stuff, well, that's bad for profits, right? So if we're thinking of it as a pure weaken or as just a straight up normal vulnerability question, just hang on to D2. E, with enough tall tables to accommodate all the Hollywood's customers interested in such seating, there would be no view except of other tall tables. Again, if we're thinking of this purely as a weaken, we can argue here. So you've got to kind of take it a little. It's like if that's the case, is it a problem? Does that mean that we'd have a problem where you can't see the celebrities as easily because all you can see is other high tables? So I guess you could say that maybe this is a weakener. It's not really clear to me that it is, partly because notice what it says in the passage. So if they replaced some of its seating, so they're going to replace some of its seating, not overwhelmingly so. So it's hard for me to see how this is really a weakness. Because they're not saying, hey, we're going to necessarily put enough tables to accommodate everybody. Hard for me to see how this is a weakness or a vulnerability. So I'm going to, because you have to do a couple things. One is ignore the part about some, number one. And number two, you kind of have to make a connection that I'm not sure is fair, that then that would somehow scare the customers away because the view wouldn't be as good. I think that's a real stretch. E is out. Now, if you picked whichever of these you picked, C or D, and I'm seeing some good chatter from the live group. I think some of you had trouble eliminating the wrong one of these two. It's because I think these both are decent weakeners, decent vulnerabilities. I think you could make a strong case for either of them. But that's not the question. The question is, the argument is vulnerable to criticism on grounds that the argument gives reason to believe that it is likely that what happens. So between C and D, which one is something that the argument tells us is likely to happen or gives us reason to believe it's likely to happen? C, a customer who chooses to sit at a tall table would be an exception to the generalization about lingering. Well, yeah, they came to see the celebrities, right? So longer celebrity watching is better than quick celebrity watching. They're not going to come in and hail their meals necessarily. Does the argument give us reason to believe that C would happen? Yeah, very possibly. So I really like C. D, a restaurant's customers who spend less time at their meals typically order cheaper stuff. The argument does not give us reason to believe that that's the case. Not at all. That's why D is out. Not because it doesn't weaken, not because it isn't a potential criticism or vulnerability, but because it doesn't give us reason to believe that D is the case. That's why D is out. That's why C is our winner. Okay. We're going to wrap it up here. If you got your butt kicked by some of these, please do not feel bad about it. I'm unleashing the hardest stuff I can on you. And I'm trying to anchor it all to things that typically go wrong, even on easier questions. So things to really, really watch out for. Don't be too dismissive of answer choices because they feel irrelevant. Watch that feeling. And instead of asking, hey, does this feel relevant to me? Ask, what does it do? So that strengthened question, a lot of you missed. Ask yourself not, hey, does this feel right? Did they talk about this? Do I see these words? Ask, what does this do to the conclusion? Also, be very, very careful about question labeling. You try to throw questions into buckets, funny things can happen. You can start hallucinating things. Please don't do that. Take the phrasing of the question exactly as it's given, because they can get creative. And we can have a philosophical argument about what proportion of passages fit neatly into a box. We can get all philosophical about it. No real point. There is certainly a meaningful number. We can debate how large it is, but it's certainly meaningful. It is not small, where you miss that little detail in the question because you're labeling it too quickly. It's going to bite you in the butt. All right. With that, coming up next in about 7 minutes, live stream on GMAT Super Scoring. If you're here live, come join us for that. Good question, yeah. This one is good. So I already did a quick pre-recorded video. There's an article up on GMAT Club. One also coming up on our website around super scoring, how to think about it. I don't want you guys overreacting and saying, oh, I need to take the test extra times now. I don't think that's the right strategy for a lot of reasons. Because this next one is live, and I'm doing it live with my friend Stacy Coprince from Manhattan Prep, answering questions live. I don't know what we're going to say. That's why we do stuff live. It makes it fun. I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. So join us for it if you're interested. If you have questions about the policy and its potential impact, come join us. We might rehash the same stuff. We might say new stuff. Who knows? I'm not going to contradict things I said earlier, but as we have a conversation, who knows what comes out? Who knows what questions you guys bring up that make us think differently? So it'll be fun. Come join us if you can. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have fun studying. And again, if you struggle on these, please don't stress about it. Have fun studying, everybody.